He's a researcher at London School of Oriental and African Studies, SOAS. Mohammed Ali Shabani, editor of the Al Monitor news websites Iran Pulse. Thank you for speaking with us from London about this. We just heard Eric Randolph in Tehran saying we don't yet know much. It's still sketchy. We heard the attackers speaking in Arabic, but that doesn't tell you necessarily whether or not they're foreign fighters.
Precisely. I think Eric brought up a very pertinent point that while Islamic State has claimed responsibility and Iran has blamed the group, we still have yet to authenticate the claim and also identify the attackers. Some Iranian websites, I saw there was one moderate website called Intikhab, apparently had Arabic language analysis and claimed that the accent of the attackers on the video, which Eric was referring to, indicated that they were from Libya, Tunisia, or Morocco, where a large number of Islamic State militants in Syria and Iraq hail from. Now, if that is true, obviously that would calibrate a certain Iranian response. But if it turns out that these Arabic-speaking militants, which were killed earlier today in the terrorist attack, hail from Iran's southwestern Arabic-speaking Khuzestan region, then obviously you have an entirely different kind of threat, which Iran has to respond to accordingly.
And again, this is something that is unprecedented for Iran.
I think the idea of government buildings being attacked is unprecedented in recent years, but not wholly unprecedented. I mean, Iran was rocked by major infighting, major violence in the 1980s, and the idea of jihadists, Sunni jihadists, attacking Iran and Iranian forces is neither new either. Just in late April, 10 Iranian border guards were killed in an incident which was claimed by a Sunni militant group called Jaish al-Adl, which, while not formally affiliated with ISIS, shares its Salafist ideology.
The president, as Eric Randolph was saying, has been speaking, saying this will make, quote, the Islamic Republic of Iran more determined, and also saying it will make Iran more united. Is that going to be the case? Because Iran is a country which is divided between conservatives, pragmatists, and people who are more moderate.
Well, immediately after the attacks, you could see even on social media just ordinary people calling for unity in the face of these attacks and try to call on people to avoid the kind of political infighting and sniping which has characterized the recent Iranian presidential elections and afterwards. Now, as you point out, Iran is strongly divided along political lines, and there will be divisions about which approach to assume. I can imagine that the Revolutionary Guards or more hardline forces will ask for or demand a more forceful response. And while Rouhani and his foreign minister, Zarif, will try to use this as an opportunity to forge closer regional cooperation with countries which have worked with Iran, but which have experienced tension in recent years, over Syria, for example, such as Turkey. As we speak right now, Foreign Minister Zarif is in Ankara meeting with the Turkish president. So I can imagine there will be closer Iranian-Turkish cooperation and coordination, not just on things like the Qatari crisis, but perhaps also in Syria, where they recently agreed with Russia on so-called de-escalation zone. So I think there will be two-pronged responses from Iran. On the one hand, you will have the military forces seeking perhaps covert action or a pushback against Saudi-led or Saudi-allied, should I say, forces on the ground. While on the other hand, you will have the civilian administration probably arguing and making the case for that this is an opportunity for Iran to say that we not only have shared interest in defeating ISIS, we're also facing a shared threat. We're both victims of this terrorist group. And this is actually an opportunity to say that this group doesn't discriminate between Sunnis or Shiites. It's just anti all of us. So that can be an opportunity for Iran to kind of cross the sectarian barrier in the Middle East right now and step up to the plate.
Yeah, because we were showing those images just now while you were speaking of the Iranian foreign minister in Ankara. Of course, he'd gone there over the Qatar crisis. With Saudi Arabia and other Arab states isolating, blockading Qatar. And we heard the Revolutionary Guards squarely blame Saudi Arabia and point to that meeting with Donald Trump that took place last week in reacting to the attack in Tehran. You're seeing an opportunity for Iran to reach across the Sunni-Shia divide. But could that Sunni-Shia divide, in fact, be greater as a result of what we've just seen today?
Again, I think it depends on the response of Iran. If Iran responds merely by escalation in places like Yemen, etc., or in Syria, that's not going to help anybody. And as you point out, most likely will inflame sectarian differences or tension, if you'd like to call it that. Hence, I believe that President Rouhani and former Mr. Zarif's approach, which most likely will be to use this as an opportunity to forge closer engagement with Sunni regional partners, which Iran previously had good cooperation with, but which it has experienced tension with over things like the crisis in Syria, such as Turkey. I think Turkey will be a key partner for Iran. And now, most recently, also Qatar. And it would be unimaginable just 2 weeks ago that Iran and Turkey would step in and offer, to dispatch things like water and food to a member of the Gulf Cooperation Council. So I think there are a lot of things at play right now, a lot of opportunities for Iran to cross the sectarian divide, to close that gulf. But if things are not, if the measures by Iran are not very considered, as you point out, things can escalate very fast.
One final question for you, Mohammed. The attack took place the same week that forces and militias in Syria have launched their offensive against the ISIS stronghold of Raqqa. You mentioned Iran reaching out to countries like Turkey. They're on opposite sides of it. What impact is what we saw in Tehran, or is there a link between what we saw in Tehran and what we're seeing in Raqqa?
I think a lot of links can be made between what happened in Tehran and with Qatar, with Raqqa, with Mosul, with a lot of things. But I think the fact of the matter is that attacks like these take months, if not weeks, to set up and just to plan. It's not just a couple of guys picking up guns and bomb belts and entering one of the most secure buildings in Iran. So I think we should be very cautious about drawing direct links. I think overall the impression I'm getting, and I think what a lot of people in Iran are getting, is that President Trump's visit to the region and his participation in the Riyadh summit has unleashed a cascade of events, beginning from the crackdown on peaceful dissent in Bahrain to the Qatari crisis, and now you have this. I think there's an impression that the Saudi leadership is becoming more rash, perhaps after having gotten the feeling that it's got a green light from Washington to do things it couldn't under Obama. So I think that's a very interesting thing to keep an eye on.
Mohammed Ali Shabani, the editor of Iran Pulse, many thanks for being with us from London.